This is the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhoads, author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Make More Money Selling Your Art, Proven Techniques to Turn Your Passion into Profit.
In the Marketing Minute, I try to answer your marketing questions from our audience. Well, that's you, right? Email your questions to me, eric@pleinairmagazine.com, or you can message me, text me, whatever you want to do. I write them down, then I use them in here. Here's a question from Dwayne in New York. I don't know his last name, but Dwayne, thank you. Dwayne says, I've heard you mention visualizing your success. Can you speak more to that? I'm not really sure what that means or how to start. Well, Dwayne, it's really nothing new, certainly not new. It's been going on for a long time. Let's start with the basic premise. What is in your head controls everything. You know, is your stomach ever turned into knots from worry or stress? Well, that's coming from your head. You know, you're worrying, right? The premise is that you want to control what's in your head. You want to control your thinking. You want to control the negative thoughts and push them out. And you also want to get the positive thoughts and the things that you believe could be happening in there and think about them a lot. So that's why it's a good idea to set goals. It's a good idea to read those goals on a regular basis and to believe that you can do it. So you have to believe something before it can happen. And I think you need to dream it or at least think about it a lot to manifest it. Now, most people think that's kind of a silly idea. And quite frankly, I used to think so too. But when you think about it, most of the things that we have made happen one way or the other have been because we've been thinking about them. And, you know, by the way, a lot of the bad things that we sit and ruminate about end up happening. Why does that happen? I'll tell you a story. 30 years ago, maybe longer than that, I was exposed to this concept. And somebody said, create a poster with pictures of what you want, you know, things you want, houses and cars, but also pictures that stand for things you want, like family or love. It's called a visualization board. And the idea is to look at it every day and imagine yourself doing it. Well, I thought it was crazy, hocus pocus, woo-woo stuff. But I thought, well, what the heck? Everybody's telling me it works. I'll try it. And I really wanted a Porsche. Yep. But I couldn't afford one. I didn't have the money. I had no way to get the money. I had a small, relatively struggling business. And so I cut out a Porsche. I didn't do the whole board, but I cut out a Porsche. And I stuck it on the mirror in the bathroom so I'd see it morning and night. And before long, I was kind of imagining myself in it. You know, you want these things to be vivid. You know, what color is it? What's it like on the interior? You know, that kind of a thing. And so I finally told myself, you know, maybe the way to get it is I could sell my business. And I kind of wanted to do that anyway. And I would reward myself if I got a certain price for my business. So anyway, I had no prospects. As a matter of fact, I wasn't even considering it before that. But a year later, after looking at that picture every day, I sold my business, I put money in the bank, and I bought that exact Porsche. I mean, it was the same color, the same model, everything that I had looked at. And interesting, it kind of came to me. In other words, you know, I was kind of looking, but all of a sudden this guy contacted me, said, I hear you're looking for a Porsche. I've got one. I don't know if it's what you're looking for or not. And he sends me a picture, and it's like, that's it. So I went over, drove over, ended up buying it. It was a used one. I didn't buy a new one, but it was pretty cool. And anyway, it's something that I had visualized. So I've kind of learned that that's a cool thing to do. I visualized the Plein Air convention. I visualized Plein Air magazine. People told me it wasn't possible, but I just kind of pushed that out of my head, got the negatives out, and said, you know what, it is possible. I've visualized this big growing Plein Air movement. That's happening. And so there's so many things that can be impacted. It's like it sets the tone and makes you work towards it, something that you kind of are doing without realizing it because you start believing it. Maybe in the beginning you don't believe it, but you start looking at that picture, you start thinking about these things. Next thing you know, you're starting to believe it. So for the last year, for instance, I've been imagining myself going to China on a painting trip and imagining that maybe somebody would pay my way. Wouldn't that be cool? Well, that's not even, I guess, about a year. And I get a call today from this guy, and he says, we want to bring you to China. I thought, how cool is that? So when I'm driving to a meeting, I imagine exactly how the conversation is going to go, how things will work out positively, and it usually happens. And I even imagined myself getting a national TV show, and I bought into it so big I could totally imagined myself doing it, getting on a major network. And within 2 weeks, I accidentally, kid you not, met this man. I said, "What do you do for a living?" He says, "Well, I'm a guy with this network." I can't tell you which one yet. But anyway, I said, "Well, I've got this idea for a show." And I told him the idea. He says, "Let's have a meeting on Monday." And then the meeting happened with his executives. And guess what I got? I got a deal. So that's how this stuff works. And I really strongly believe it works. It just sounds so illogical, and I don't understand it. I have no idea. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes and, the brain waves or spiritual or otherwise, but it's a pretty cool thing. So if you visualize bad things, they happen too. So I try to push bad out of my head. We all have negative thoughts, and I'll tell myself, it's not like me to think that, and I'll just push it away. So anyway, that's what visualization means. Now, the next question comes from Carol from the Gulf Shore of Alabama with a banjo on her knee. I'm sorry, Carol, I had to do it. She says, "When I see the work of amazing artists, I feel like I'll never be that good. How does one get past the inevitable comparisons we make to other artists?" Carol, stop it. Stop comparing yourselves to others, not just in your artwork, but in everything. Focus on yourself being the best you can be. Will you or I ever be as good as John Singer Sargent, the great master? I mean, how many really great masters are there really? We're probably not going to be that good. I mean, he had something special that most of us don't have. I don't want to be a negative thinker about that, but I also am being practical. He was a rarity, but we can still be great painters or good painters, and maybe one day great painters. So you might be comparing yourself to someone who's been painting for 50 years and has lots of experience, but who started out just like you, struggling. You don't know. You don't know what they went through, their struggles, their frustrations, who was teaching them, the thousands of hours they put in. You just don't want to compare. You don't necessarily want to go through what they went through. My dad once told me, "Son, somebody's always got a bigger boat." In other words, no matter how good, how successful, how rich, how famous, how talented, there's always somebody who has done more. You simply can't get caught up in the comparison game. All you can do is study, work hard, put in the time, believe in yourself, get great mentors, and be happy with your progress. And a great way to do that is to look in reverse. What I mean by that is look how far you've come. Look at what you're doing today compared to what you were doing 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Sometimes I think, well, I really wish I had a better house or a better car. And then I look back and I say, wow, look at what I've got compared to what I had 20, 30, 40 years ago. I mean, I had nothing. I lived in a crummy little apartment, little tiny, what do they call that, studio apartment? I just did not dig it at all. And I thought, I'll never get out of there. And now I live in a nice house, and it's not a big giant mansion or anything like that, but I look back and I go, wow, this is a big improvement. So don't compare yourself to others. It just doesn't do any good. Get that out of your head. Stop playing that game. Be grateful for where you are and what you've got, and just continue to work hard. Anyway, that's the Marketing Minute. I hope it helps.
This has been the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhoads. You can learn more at artmarketing.com.